What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the ultimate JDM experience where, yes, Honda Civics, Subaru Imprezas, and various other economy cars are now sports cars. This is a continuation of my N52 build series where I show you that buying a 335 is not the only way to build power on a 328, 325, 330, etc. whatever. This video is going to cover the rest of my stage 2 power mod list. If you haven't seen the first episode, we cover all the very basic items and it only cost us $190. Not a ton of horsepower was gained, but that's why I consider it stage 1. It's very easy things that pretty much anybody could do for just a few dollars and a few hours. But now we're on to stage 2 where some real gains start to come in. So don't start shopping for a 335 just yet because we're only just getting started. Stage 2 has a bit more significant gains for not all that much money. Theoretically, crank horsepower gains are 67 on 325 and 52 horsepower on 328, and it only costs, stage 2 only costs about 330
Trying to freaking tell me something?
Anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. So the first one that I have here on my stage list is the custom RAM intake, which I did a whole separate video. You can click above and watch it. In that video, I modify my stock airbox with a vacuum hose, and it only cost me about $30. So definitely go check that out. It's a very easy thing. The next thing is the exhaust resonator delete. Same thing. I still don't know how to weld, so I just took it to a shop, and it cost me about $120, and they did it in about an hour. People might say that there's nothing to be gained from cutting it off, but just trust me, I've done it twice on 2 different cars. There definitely is a power gain from it. Not much, but it's something. The difference is subtle, but for having zero talent, it's something that you can do for pretty cheap, assuming you got a shop around you that can do it. And plus, on top of that, the sound, if you do just the resonator delete, it's a little raspy, but if you're going for cheap exhaust sound, if you do the resonator delete and a muffler delete, you get some pretty nice sounds. Not gonna lie, here's some clips. Now for the one that everybody talks about, probably the most important modification for your N52 car, if your car doesn't already have it installed. That would be the 3-stage intake manifold. And when I say doesn't already have it installed, all the cars ending in 30i, like 330i, 530i, etc., or the N51 Sulev cars already have the 3-stage manifold installed. For the Sulev cars, they just need a tune to get the most out of it. So if either of those apply to you, you can disregard most of this video. In this video, I'm going to cover everything from my advice on getting this as cheap as possible, from installation to things you might want to consider while you're installing it, and to the final tune, if you will, to make this all work. So to start, what is the 3-stage manifold mod? Well, the 3-stage manifold basically has 2 extra valves to channel air to cylinders that need it the most at different RPMs. The first being the throttle body that allows air into the whole intake, and then the other 2 being ones that channel to different cylinders. Every N52 engine has the 2 hookups attached to the wiring harness, so the 3-stage manifold is a direct bolt-on. As you can see on my stage list, I have it listed only as $185 for cost on this. I was able to do this because I got the manifold itself for $30 from my local scrapyard. That's my first suggestion. Try to buy one at a scrapyard. It's going to be cheap because they don't really see any value in it. Look under any mid-2000s BMW. If you find an N52, look above the throttle body and look for a big extra valve. That's how you tell them apart. If you can't find one at a local scrapyard, I suggest trying local parts dealers next, people who are parting out cars on the internet. The only difference is they were probably going to see a value in it, and they might try and sell it for more than it's really worth. In my opinion, try not to pay any more than $80 for it, because really it is just a piece of plastic. And if you can't find one from a parts dealer, I guess you have no other option but to buy one on eBay. A lot of people are selling them around $250, $300. If you have absolutely no option, just give up. Don't even buy the $1,000 kit that sells brand new aftermarket parts. That is ridiculous. The other way I was able to save money on this is I bought aftermarket Dissa flaps. The reason I went aftermarket is because, for one, they're cheap, and plus the aftermarket ones have metal rods that the flaps twist on, as opposed to the OEM ones, which have plastic and they don't last very long. If you're considering reusing used Dissa flaps, I'd say just skip the rebuild kits and all that stupid crap. I'd say just buy the Amazon aftermarket ones. I've got links in the description for you. Other than that, the rest of the materials are pretty cheap. You just need PCV hoses because they're very likely to break when you take them off. And other than that, you also need your intake manifold gaskets. Also, while you're in there, you might want to preventively do some maintenance, such as your starter, because it is underneath your intake manifold. So you might as well do it while you're under there. Preventatively, you might want to replace your PCV system if your car is pre-2008. I will talk more about this later. Also, it's a great idea to preventatively replace your oil filter housing gasket, because same thing, one of the bolts for that housing is underneath the intake manifold, and it's just a lot easier to access while you have the manifold off. After I got my 3-stage manifold, I took off all the Dissa flaps, all the sensors, and the PCV system, brought it to a car wash, and sprayed out all the nasty oil. I let it dry for about 24 hours before reinstalling new Dissa flaps and a new PCV system. If you can't tell by the tone of my voice, I fucking hate doing voiceovers. So anyways, here's the video. Enjoy. Thanks. That's the one. So to make it easier, we took the hood off so we can see better, and it's so much easier. Okay. All right, so tonight we're doing one of the most important and most power gaining mods that you can do to your N52 motor. It's a direct bolt-on and a quick tune. But what we're doing is, a lot of people already know about this, is the 3-stage manifold mod. So the difference between the stock manifold and this is there's only one throttle body, and then your runners, it just goes straight to your runners. But on the 3-stage, you have an extra set of flaps here. One Dissa, they're called Dissa valves, but they also have, that's BMW language, but there's another term for what those are called as well. But you have your throttle body, which goes here, one big Dissa flap that goes here, and then a smaller one that goes there. And basically what it does is it channels air to cylinders that need it the most at different rev ranges, different gears, different whatever. The car does all it for you. It's really not that hard to do. Also, when you're in there, it's a good idea to replace things such as your CCV/PCV if you have a car that's pre-2008. If you have a 2008 or later, you are very likely to break the hose anyways. So I'm going to link you all the stuff that you need for both models, the hose and the PCV. Basically what I did, I found this at a junkyard for $30. Just look under any mid-2000s BMW with an N52, and there's other, well, yeah, and just look for a big port above your throttle body. Try and get as much of the original stuff as possible. The Dissas, I don't recommend reusing the Dissas, but you're gonna want the screws that come with it. It's a really easy job. The only thing that's hard about it is the junction box down here rusts on, but I'll show you how to do it when we get to that. But it's not hard, it's just tedious. So yeah, we'll get right into it. So pretty much to start, you just wanna get some stuff out of your way. So I removed the cabin air filter and these cross bar pieces. There's a bolt up there and a bolt that secure them on the bottom. And also what I'm gonna do right now is take off the power steering reservoir and move it out of the way. Basically just want as much free room as possible. These are 10s.
Should pop up like things on the screen.
Fuck, I can see it.
Should pop up things on the screen, like what size bolts are.
Yeah. Be careful with your power steering reservoir as I rupture it right now. Also careful of your purge valve tube. I'm pretty sure that's purge valve shit. But basically, carefully get it underneath and just put it to the side and you're good. Best thing to do with bolts is just put them back where they were. And we're gonna do a series of unplugging shit. So there's all sorts of stuff. I forget what this, it might be a map sensor. I could be totally wrong. But you're gonna unplug a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of wire, just things that do cable management. But you have to free it all up. Pretty simple. This is the throttle body. Wire comes off. Pretty easy. And then there's more 10s that hold on the throttle body itself. These are the DISA cable connectors, which is funny. Every N52 has these, like the hookups that you need for the 3-stage, even if they don't have the 3-stage, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, so you're gonna remove the throttle body, more 10s. They're on there, but once you crack them, they come off pretty easy. There's 4 of them, each corner. One thing I forgot to mention is it's a good idea to remove your battery, the negative terminal. All right, when you're removing the negative terminal, especially on the LCI, just put something to cover the latch so if your trunk falls, you're not screwed. But I have my back seats out anyway, so it's not really a big deal. The negative terminal, I'm pretty sure it's a 10. Yep, it's a 10. Just loosen it, and then you pull it off. Put it to the side. And that's that. All right, so after you get the throttle body bolts off, comes off, it's recommended to replace the throttle body gasket, but I'm not because I replaced it just a few months ago. And it's also good to clean it too. The hardest part, generally, is this junction box, especially if you live in the Northeast, because it rusts on like crazy. So we're gonna see how bad it is, because you don't want to break the clips, but a PB blaster and a flathead screwdriver is the way. Where is my flat? Is a good idea. This one is not as bad as the last car that I did this with. So yeah, just work at it slowly. You'll get it off eventually. You can get some leverage underneath it. Just try not to break the clips is all. Just want to cut all that plastic and shit that melds onto it. If you break 1 or 2, it's fine. But yeah, they're a big pain in the ass to get these off. So if you don't want to mess with your junction box, and if your screws are not like seized on with rust, you can actually take the whole bracket off. There's 2 Torx on both sides. I'm using this dead drill because it's the only thing that fits in there that I have. But that way you don't have to risk breaking your clips. So if you can do it this way, do it this way. But if not, just work at scraping these clips and eventually it'll come off. All right, so once you take the bracket off, there's a bunch of more things to unplug. These are your O2 sensor cables. It's a good idea to label one of them so you know which one goes to which. Either way, you'll know if you put them in wrong because they'll throw a code. But yeah, they just snap into here and then they plug in. There's a little clip, so don't just yank on it. So yeah, you can push those down. The PCV from the valve cover goes around the back. Kind of pull your O2s out of the way. This is guaranteed to break when you when you take it off. It's made out of eggshells. So, but in theory, there's little clips or springs that you push on and then pull it off, or kind of push and then pull, but it's gonna break. It's also, there's not a ton of room to reach it. I'm gonna take a flathead to get. clip already broke, but the hose is gonna break too. Oh, there it goes. You could technically reuse it in this instance, but you really shouldn't, because they go through a lot of heat cycles and they eventually crack. But I have replacements for both in the description. Your fuel lines has just a, yeah, okay, so it's just a regular Phillips head. Where's my Phillips?
I don't know. It's not like this place is clean.
I could probably get away with a flat. But yeah, right there. Yeah. Pretty much every bolt that you're gonna do, just get it off by hand and then, yeah, like loosen it and get it off by hand so you don't drop it. Not much else you can unplug right now, so now you start attacking the actual manifold bolts. Deep socket might be a good idea. They are 11s. Let's crack them and then do the rest by hand. I'm gonna crack all of them. Try to take them off by hand. And take your time, you just don't want to drop bolts. It's a good idea to have a cup for your different bolts and keep them separated. So I'm putting all the manifold bolts in a separate cup. All right, I'll see you in a minute when I take everything off. None of this is hard, it's just hard to reach. We took my hood off and it freed up a lot of space. This is the last bolts right here. Once you get it off, giggity, the whole thing is free.
That's it.
Yep. Then once it's free, you gotta get your hands in and unplug all the shit that's underneath. Okay, so there's a cable that plugs into whatever that does. Basically, you're just gonna free up whatever's plugged in. And there's most of these things, they only go in one way. So like, you don't really have to take the time to label these things. Just check all your wires when you come back. But if you really want to, you can take pictures of things so you remember where they were. There's gonna be a hose running from the PCV to the oil pan, but same thing, it's one of those clip and pull things. You can see it right here. Gonna be a pain in the ass. Oh, actually, it's pretty easy. So that's that. Should be free. Or almost. Remove your electrical connections from your manifold in your hoses. I'm gonna take a little flat so I don't break them. Okay, so there's a little clip, just pry it up carefully, and then the wire comes out. I can tell this job has been done before. These gaskets are orange and everything's labeled. The starter motor looks new. This is a great time to clean your block. Mine is pretty freaking clean, but if your oil filter had blown, it might be covered in oil. It's a great time to access your starter and replace it. Mine looks brand new. And of course, like I said, the PCV. But like I said, this is for only pre-2008. There's a recall on them. The first time I did this, I was doing it on 08, and I was expecting to see this thing. So I took it off, and I was absolutely baffled when I did not see this. It threw my whole thing off. But yeah, so just know what you need. If you have a 2008 or later, all you need is an L-shaped hose that goes all the way to the back. The PCV is built into the frickin' valve cover itself. But anyways, now this is free. Manifold delete. All right, so the manifold delete, it saves you 13 pounds, 13.2 pounds. So, so your hose, it's gonna be the same style clip on the bottom somewhere in a very inconvenient spot. I'm using a big screwdriver to get some leverage on the clip. But yeah, don't worry about freaking breaking it, because it's probably honestly easier. Just don't damage the connection itself. All right, well that you have everything off, it's a good idea to clean the seating where the manifold sits with some like parts cleaner or some throttle body cleaner. And then also, like I said, it's a good time to hit your starter if you need to, or your oil filter housing gasket, because this bolt's a lot easier to get to while your manifold is off. So what I'm going to do is just kind of spray around, take a towel and just clean the seating. Careful not to get stuff into your engine, but yeah. All right, so there's like a million tutorials on how to do this online, but I'm doing my oil filter housing gasket because it's not perfect. Yeah, they have E10 bolts. You should do it preventatively anyways, just as much as you should preventatively redo your CCV, because if it breaks, you're gonna blow every gasket in your engine's system. So your valve cover, your oil filter, and your oil pan. So yeah. Yeah, I bought this whole kit. It's from FCP Euro. They have every bolt, it replaces the bolts and the gasket. But yeah, the reason why you want to do it when your manifold's off is because this bolt is a big pain in the ass otherwise. Okay, so I'm going to borrow some of the original equipment, like the sensor. I'm going to take stuff that I know already works, like little things, just so I don't bolt it all up and something, doesn't work. So yeah, I'm going to transfer it over to the 3-stage, then get the hoses going. These bolts are all universal. Just because a lot of these parts that were on this manifold were sitting in a junkyard for an unknown amount of time. But the manifold itself is made out of plastic, so as long as there's no cracks in it, should be no issue.
At least.
So I don't even know what this sensor is, but
It's a sensor.
remember, do your stretches before you do all this shit. I did not. This is that bracket. Remember, we took it off the other one. Oh, of course. This really seized on. Might need a bigger. I'll let that soak in for a bit, but I'm gonna reinstall just the flaps. So, some people say only do OEM shit, but I've used these Amazon ones. This will be the second time I've used them. I've had no problems with them. Okay, so like I said, try and get the original bolts. The 3 screws that are funny sizes, go for the small dissa, which mounts on the other side, but screws in right there. So these are just universal. So you can use ones that you borrow from other parts of your manifold. And since you'll have 2 manifolds, you should have plenty of these screws. So yeah, just 4 of the same size Torx screws. Everything that mounts to the manifold has them, so you should have spare ones. I have like 20 for some reason. There's the big dissa mounted. So then the little dissa, you mount, see where the bolts are. Okay, so it mounts this way. Just push it into place. Snaps in pretty nice. And then let's see which one. Can kind of guess, since there's 2 of the same size and one longer one, that the long one would probably go on the bottom, because there's only 1 on the bottom and then 2 on the top, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, I was correct. The long one goes on the bottom. Alright, initially we kind of worked around and just unscrewed the bracket, but the bracket on the 3-stage is seized on there, so for the sake of time, instead of getting that bracket off, we are just going to take the bracket off of this and then feed that onto that bracket when it's on. So what I did, since it was off the manifold, it made it a lot easier. I just got my screwdriver in and pried it out. It comes out pretty easy once you don't have anything else on it. And then there's on the back of it. The rubber is going into that fin here. You can see that. Now, as you watch me struggle here, as we all know, BMW just absolutely loves plastic and rubber components everywhere. I myself hate rubber. That's why I'm considering a vasectomy. It's also why I hate myself, and I'm considering calling Mercedes-Benz and apologizing. Jesus. Alright, now I'm pissed. Now I'm fucking pissed. Get it off now. Okay, there we go. Alright, there's the fucking bracket. It's off the car. It's as easy as that. Now we finished the reinstallation of the hoses that you need on this. I already put most of the gaskets on, so like I said, replace the intake manifold gaskets. I have the link in the description. You just seat them in there like that after you take the old ones out. Easy. Make sure you got all 6 of them nice and seated in the little grooves. No folds, nothing like that. Don't want any boost leaks. Just kidding. We are not on a turbo engine. This L-shaped hose snaps in there. Snaps in here. If you're having trouble, you can put some Vaseline or something on there. But they clip on pretty easy. Pretty nicely, not going anywhere. So then you take the other 2 hoses, the yellow one, the one with the smaller jacket on the top and the yellow thingies goes to the pan. So that is the bottom, clips on like that. Then we'll get it into place whatever direction needs to be oriented when it's on there. Plug it into any one of the things, make sure it's in there all the way. Then the other hose that goes to your valve cover. Remember now, so that same thing just clicks on. It's supposed to. Don't get pissed off and break it. There, it's clipped on. The PCV, there is like one bolt there, one there, and another one behind the bracket. This just manages the cable. Same thing, plug this bitch in. These plugs only go in one way, so can't really worry about messing up. Make sure it's in all the way. Then the last plug goes from the junction box. So now this is ready to go into the car. Everything looks good. We'll just clean it up just a little bit. Then we're good to put it in the car. So just gonna first make sure your O2 sensors are. You're gonna feed them through the manifold. Oh yeah, actually before I put it in, I'm going to find the long one goes on the inside and the short one goes on the outside. Just kind of carefully get it close to in place. Once I get it loosely into place, then I can start hooking things up. Okay, so I'm gonna start plugging things in. So starting with the disses, I suppose. Gonna take the little clips off them. Oh, there's a little clip on that holds it in. So now you're just a wire. So, like I said, the long one goes to the inner one. So, gonna feed it through the manifold, then plug it in, like so, to the dis valve. Okay, no, that's not going anywhere. Basically, just slowly just start plugging things in. We'll do the other dis valve. But there's not a ton of things, so you can't really mess up too bad. As long as you double check that you got everything, you'll be good.
I'll probably search up the schematic online.
Yeah, probably good. One disser, two disser. PCV return. I assume I'm gonna put it underneath the wires. Trying really hard not to damage it. I'm gonna start to put this more in place.
There you go.
Sounds bad, but that is just hopefully not my hose. This is a lot easier on the plastic manifold, or I mean, sorry, plastic valve cover, because then you don't have to deal with all this crap with the old-fashioned PCB. There's another little red wire that looks like the dissos that plugs into the manifold right there. That's in there. Okay. Feed my M2 sensors. I remember they went up through the runner, like so. So the reason they have some male bolts or threads sticking out is so you can line it up so you don't have to hold it in place. Okay, I think it's on it. Just gonna push it down into place. I remember there's a wire from that runs from the junction box to the manifold. That one.
Very hard to see in there with this.
Hey, this is fun, isn't it? See a little wire box? Oh, okay, I can feel it. I need to plug this into there. Okay, so now we're bolting it up. Same thing as taking it off. Start by hand, so you don't cross thread them. I'm sorry we didn't film everything. It's a big pain in the ass. There's shit that you can't see. We needed both hands to kind of get everything into place. Alright, so yeah, you're gonna do like a cross pattern, so like start on the outside and work in. That is the wrong wrench. They don't have to be super tight. They just gotta be snug, like that.
You work from the outside. Okay, outside in. Gotcha.
Yeah. Alright, so putting everything back together the same way that you took it off. It's a big hassle, but it's all worth it in the end. But yeah, that is the 3-stage manifold. It is not that hard. Just tedious. So for this section of the video, I very highly suggest you do your research and do it your own risk. So for your 3-stage manifold to work at its full potential, it needs a different tune. We're going to be doing the free option, which is Beamer Labs 330i conversion. I'm going to show you where to find all the information that you need, and I'm going to show you some tips if you are having some trouble. I'm not going to make another video that reads someone else's instructions on how to do it. I'm just going to lead you into the right direction and give you some extra tips, because there were certain things that I couldn't find, and when I did this the first time there wasn't a ton of information out there, but you can learn from my findings. First off, buy the cable that they recommend. A high quality cable. My DCAN cable, KDCAN, whatever, is a Beamer Geeks cable. It cost about $45 and never had any problems. So just don't buy a cheap eBay one. Just buy the good one. You won't risk destroying your car. So after you bought your cable, you're gonna need a computer, obviously, and you're gonna want to download 2 things. Well, actually 3. From Beamer Geeks, you are gonna need the standard tools and the SP Datens, which is German for something. But what this is all the BMW dealership softwares, and this is all just the different car data packs for different vehicles and all sorts of different module programming. To help you understand a bit, it's not necessarily that you're tuning something different. It's really all that you're about to do. You're downloading batch files which run different inputs on this software for you to make it a lot easier. So you're not running a new tune, you're just making it so that what I was trying to say here is that Beamer Labs does not make a tune, they just made a batch file which runs parameters in a BMW dealership software for you, so you don't have to do it. On beamerlabs.com, it has a whole help FAQ section. You scroll down and it has an entire help section on how to do this stuff. Read it to a T. Do it everything that they say to a T. I'm not going to read it all, but it's going to show you how to download the standard tools. It's going to tell you how to import the Daten files, and it's going to tell you some advice on how to do this safely and maximize your success rate on how to do this. So as you can see, there's some basic steps, but it shows you pictures on how to do everything. And then this is what the tune is going to look like. Like I said, I'm not going to read all this for you because you should be able to read. I don't need to frickin' make another video on how to do that. There's already 10. So what you're going to do is you're going to make an account on beamerlabs.com. This is what you're going to see after you make an account. It's going to ask you to make a project. It's going to ask you your VIN and stuff, and it's basically just making sure that you don't mess anything up on accident. For my current car, it's a manual and it's a 2006, so it has an MSV 70 ECU. So once you go into the project, you'll see it ask me some questions about it and whatnot. Once you put in the VIN, it figures out your transmission for you. So to help you understand, you're gonna go into downloads, and you need 2 things. You need the RSA delete and you need this. you run this one first. It's a batch file, like I said, and then you run this one. This just makes it so that you can reprogram your car's coding, and then this is the one that makes it runs it, the batch file to put the proper one on. So I have a manual transmission car, so this is the only two that I have to do. So let's say hypothetically you have an automatic transmission, and it might be confusing if you don't know this stuff, but you're selecting, these are your different computer modules that are going to be in your car. The MSV80 is your ECU, and the GM, well, at least in my case, I had a GM transmission, all-wheel drive, 2008. So I had the GM transmission, and this is the computer for that. So to select transmission tunes, you have to go and select the transmission, save it, the page will refresh, and now it's showing the downloads for the transmission. So there are two stuck to where? Interesting. Oh, okay, here they are. So like I said, you're gonna download these ones, not these. These, I don't even know what these are, but I've accidentally downloaded these ones and tried running it, and my car did nothing. There was no tune on it or something like that. But these are your transmission ones. You're also gonna plug it into a battery charger. I don't have that set up right now because I'm not actually doing it. I'm just showing you some tips. So then what I also like to do to be extra safe, the key is in the ignition, in the accessory position. I run the cable. I have my computer on the chair, and I wrap the cable around so it can't slip out. When you're doing this stuff, you don't want to open your doors, touch any windows, touch anything inside the car, the stereo, anything, because you can damage your car. I'm gonna open up INPA to show you that I have a connection with my car. This is what you're gonna want. You use INPA, which is a scanning diagnostic program, but you use this to verify a good connection between your car and your computer. If you don't have a connection, these won't be lit up. These still are gonna be tweaking out like that, but these dots, these two black dots, is what you want. And sometimes it doesn't work. Your cable doesn't work immediately, and I had problems getting connection, so I had to do a few different troubleshooting things, and I'm going to show you some things that could go wrong that you can check if your cable isn't working immediately. So the first thing to check, if you can't get a connection between your car and your computer with this cable, is the first thing you're going to check is you're going to open up Device Manager. You're going to open up Device Manager. I'm also going to focus my camera. You're going to open up Device Manager. Takes forever, you know. You're going to go to ports, and the only one you see is probably, I assume you probably only have one, but you're going to go into COM ports. See that? COM ports, and the one that's in there is probably your cable. It is for me. And if it doesn't work with the BMW stuff, what you're gonna do is you're gonna just try different ones. For me, COM1 is working, but you're gonna just try different ones. You know, press OK and stuff and all that to get it to work. For me, I didn't have this problem, but sometimes it can happen. It's something I tried to get mine to work when I couldn't get it to work, but that's one thing to try. Next thing to do if it doesn't work and you need to troubleshoot is in your C drive, after you installed your BMW tools, there's going to be this Edia Bus. Then it's going to be in bin. Then you're going to scroll down a bit and see and find Edia Bus, all caps, and it's a configuration setting. Open that up, and then in here, this is actual coding. So I believe, just make sure everything is written like this. One of these is not might not be like this, but for it to work, you need this to be remote, and you need the interface to be STD, 2 dots, whatever the fuck that's called, and then OBD. Make sure when you do this that there's no spaces between the equal sign, because that was a problem I had. You have to, everything in code, everything has to be a certain way for it to for everything to work properly. So, you know, make sure that this setting is all like this, and if it's not, change it, type it in, and then save it, and then try it again. Hopefully then you should have connection with your cable. Another thing to try, if you still can't get it, I'm on Windows 10. Sometimes you might need to run these things in compatibility mode. You go into properties of these programs, compatibility, and then you can run it in compatibility mode for Windows 7, you know, all this stuff. If you are gonna do it, try Windows 7, maybe Vista or something. I don't think you normally have to do this stuff, but you know, if you're still having problems, these are old programs, but I'm on Windows 10 and I didn't have to do that stuff, but that's something to try. At this point, you should have a connection with your cable, and then you can run these batch files and have your car programmed the way you want it to, and everything should be good. So here I downloaded them and I put them in the same spot. So I got my RSA delete. When you're ready and you have everything set up, you will just run your Windows batch file. The first one is under RSA delete, and it's the MSV70. That's me, at least. There's some information in here. Just make sure you do everything to what they say and you'll be totally fine. And then once you do the RSA delete, same thing, go back to where you have your tune deleted, 325 to 330. That's me. MSV70, same thing, that's a batch file. It will run everything in WinKFP for you. WinKFP is the program that's going to be flashing, tuning your car and switching the coding, but input is just the diagnostic ones that we will be utilizing to make sure we have a good connection between the car and the computer. Like I said, this isn't a direct tutorial because there's information on their websites on how to do this, and I'm not just going to read the instructions for you. I'm just trying to give you some extra tips on how to get this to actually work and how to understand what's actually going on. So good luck to you. Be very careful when you do this stuff. I didn't tell you to do it. I'm just giving you advice. So good luck with your N52.